Hello, I'm Lorenzo and you're watching KSP to Mars, where once again we're going to the moon. And the vessel I made today is quite something. Here, have a look. It is going to do two things. It is going to deploy this station to a lunar orbit, and this is the lander that will return one Kerbal back to Earth. Well, first it will land on the moon, do science in one of the polar regions I'm planning, and then it will return to Earth. That should have the Delta V for it. Now this mission is somewhat heavier than the previous ones, and that's where the new launch vehicle comes in. It has been tested a little bit, but it is rather large and it makes happy use of the mainsail engines. I'm going to give that a go now. Before I was looking at the crew, I want to put, well, not Richesby in, he's our veteran, we can't lose him. And then we see here there's a very low amount of Kerbals that are not incredibly stupid in our space program. Not the greatest choice for scientists, but then again we're just going to go with Milmone. That can be the courageous pilot and a courageous scientist and a, well, you know what they say, a Cyclops is king among the blind. One-eyed is king among the blind, whatever. This guy is our master scientist. So let's go to the launch pad. One problem with the lander plus research laboratory design is that if something goes wrong, the chances for survival are very, very low indeed, because the pod is sandwiched in between the rocket and the science station. So if something is going to go wrong on this launcher, I'm going to try and save them, but it's not going to look good, I can tell you that now. I did run a few test flights of the launcher, not actually test flights. I just checked whether nothing automatically explodes with a sample payload of 50 tons. This launcher is a big step up from the last one that could put about 20 tons in low Earth orbit. This does, let's first and foremost time warp to a daylight side. Oh, that is of course always a little bit dangerous, time warping on the pad. Yeah, I'm going to cut out and switch it to daylight because we're going to view this launch and we want it to be pretty. So, and there we are on the launch pad in the daylight, so that we can launch this vessel. What I was saying is that this launcher can put 50 tons, well, let's not name a destination, but it gives 50 tons, a delta V of 10 kilometers per second at a thrust to weight ratio that's always above 1.5. So that's a lot better than the pootering rocket that we had before. Problem is, this one is yet more massive, so in weight of course, but also in part count. So I'm expecting a little bit of launch lag. I have made it so that a lot of engine parts are dropped, so it should probably fix itself. Well, it should probably fix itself, but not quite immediately. Here we go, launching that, and well, we immediately encounter a problem that one of the launch clamps hasn't released, and part of the rocket is remaining on the pad. So let's go back to that and see if we can't fix that, because, well, the launch clamps need to release, otherwise the rocket is not going to do well. I think I had all 8 of them in the staging, or perhaps there's 9 and one wasn't. But I find even if you load a big rocket like this on the pad, it doesn't always work out. If the design is fine, it will load like 3 out of 4 times, and the other time something really strange will just happen. I don't know why that is, but let's have a look. There's 8 launch clamps here. Are there anywhere else? No. So that launch clamp should just release. So I'm calling glitch on that. And if we have a look at the F3 window, nothing happened yet. Everything is still attached. So that should be alright. Setting the moon as a target so I can see it. That's not the moon. So I can see it on the nav ball. And trying that again. Throttling up. And launching in the capable hands of Calzon Kerman. I think we're lifting up straight this time. Yeah. And it may seem like it's going very slow, but that's just because the frame rate is terrible. In actuality, we are going really, really fast. Look, we have a thrust to weight ratio of, oh, I lied, It's not always above 1.5, it's just a hair under 1.5. But this rocket is lifting up on 31.8 meganewtons of thrust from the mainsails and the solid boosters, and that is becoming a happy pile of fire. One problem with the first stage here is that it does overheat, so as soon as these bars climb a little bit higher, I'm going to have to, well, cut back on the throttle really, or face imminent explosions. Also, because this goes faster in the lower atmosphere, aerodynamics are more of an issue than with the very slow lifter, so I have to take care steering. If I let it just turn over by itself, basically do an actual gravity turn, then it will level off at about 20 kilometers, which is far too soon, because then we're just going to burn all the fuel through the atmosphere and not even get to space. So I have to coax it to, well, go up for a little bit first and then start turning over. Oh wow, look at the portraits here. Our scientists are having a wonderful time, can't you tell? And well, the pilot, Malmon, she's having... I decided that everyone with the Moan name is a woman, so she's having a wonderful time. Malmon, the pilot, and Kelson and Jack are just... well, I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're not having a great time. Contrary to all the other episodes so far, I'm not going to skip through this launch. Well, not completely. I'm going to talk you through it and we'll see how it works. I will cut out a little bit of the burn time of all the stages, but I'm going to show you every nice bit, because this is the new launcher that we will probably be using for the foreseeable future, of course, unless things inexplicably start going horribly wrong. Here we're coming up on 200 meters per second, and for comparison, the old launcher that would be at 160 meters per second upon solid booster burnout. So this one is accelerating faster than that, and it's of course carrying a lot more payload as well. So this is a stride forward in the technology department. So here we go, booster separation. And this is a scary bit because, well, there's not a lot of force pushing them outwards, so they really fall just next to the rocket, and there they are, they're exploding, colliding in on themselves. But that's not a problem because that's happening behind the rocket. And when this stage burns out, I have to remember to throttle up, because the next stage that is capable of a full throttle burn, if I recall correctly. It has a good 50 to 60 parts more than the old booster, but albeit the frame rate, although low, the frame rate is at least equal, if not slightly better than the old rocket. And I think that's because although the part count is higher, the engine count is lower. So there is less different sources of force that need to be calculated. I did some steering input, and that did not look good on the rocket. This is still uncharted territory for me. I'm going to throttle up and kick in the second stage. And this is a funny stage. It has a center core of mainsails and an outer ring of skippers. I've tried to use the skippers wherever possible because they are lighter and of course a little bit more fuel efficient. And this combination gives us not even the 1.5. I've been a big liar when I pitched this rocket to you. This gives us 1.3 thrust to weight ratio, which is good enough really, and helps the stage below that because the skippers are lighter. So this thrust to weight of course will rise as the fuel burns, and then it will become a decent stage, and then we have the next asparagus stage. Also, what I did is run fuel lines from the skippers to the center cores, so these are going to fall away, not quite in asparagus style, but this is an onion layer style mated to a serial stage. So when these skippers burn out, the mainsails will take over and push the rocket a little bit higher. Because I didn't quite manage true hexagonal symmetry, 4 of the 6 inner cores carry 2 skipper boosters and 1 carries just 1. There just wasn't enough space around the rocket. There probably is if I had taken a little bit more time, but I didn't. So, excuse me. What is going to happen is that these two boosters, they will run out before the other one, so they will also separate first. And this is a point where, well, we've had some problems in the past, and that these boosters don't separate cleanly. I did put them on the extended decouplers, so we'll see what happens with that. So I'm going to cut towards that point, so prepare for that now. And there we are, coming up on that separation. We can look at the rocket exhausts and see when they dry up. So there it goes. And here we go, ditching those two boosters. Don't hit anything, and they didn't hit anything. Now here we are. We will soon see the 1 point of slight inefficiency in this rocket. The center mainsail booster. Ooh, I can also see that could possibly need some struts because it's wobbling apart from the rest a little bit. This is going to run out before all the others because I didn't manage to run fuel lines to this one. So that will become that weight for the rest of the trip. I don't mind that too much because with these mainsails they have a well, just enough thrust in the beginning of their stage, and then in the end they almost inevitably have far too much. So I'll see it as a form of engine throttling where where thrust is reduced further along the burn. I would have liked to ditch that rocket. I could maybe put a decoupler in between, but I think that's over-engineering things a bit. Now that we're actually doing the launch, I am a little bit worried about whether or not we're going to be efficient enough, because we're at 55 kilometers, but only about a kilometer per second moving, but that is almost pure horizontal movement. So on the one hand, this is more like an actual launch trajectory, but it's not the way I've been doing it, so it's hard to, well, gauge the efficiency, the efficacy of this booster for me. So we're coming up on the separation of these outer layers, and if that goes well, then I think we're in good shape. So I'm not going to input any steering authority. There we go. Separate cleanly, please. Please, 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 please. There we go. Now we're just under mainsail power. And let's have a look at our thrust to weight here. The center one has now burned out. Hey, and two others will also burn out first. Oh, those are of course the ones that were behind the singular stack. Well, inside of the singular stack. Well, we're at a thrust to weight of 1.5 again, and when this burns out, I wonder how that goes. I might have to redo the fuel line logic, or just let it burn all at once for a little bit more kick, but also a little bit more inefficiency. What did I want to look at? It does appear as though we are burning up all our delta V. Then again, I don't know if this is taking into account the nuclear engine in the top stage, or maybe the staging has borked a little bit because I'm expecting higher numbers here. But if the delta V reading is as it is now, then we did a horrible launch, and we might make it to the moon, but we won't be happy. Oh no, it's actually still quite alright. We have 14.5 kilometers per second left, and we are just nearing the edge of space now. I am making problems where none exist. Things are going well. And this booster is now, well, the thrust to weight isn't as phenomenal as I was pitching it to you earlier, and as I was expecting, but it is good enough, really. After this stage, we get here an asparagus staged stack of skippers that I hope will be compatible with this launch trajectory. That we might have needed to raise our apoapsis a little bit higher, so that those skippers could, well, that they had the time and just the time to take care of business. So this is going to burn for a while more. I will skip forward to the separation of this stage. So see you there. Here we are, the stage is almost burned out, and the rocket is veering left and right a bit because the thrust vectoring on these mainsails, even though the amount of degrees they can vector at is not so high, they have a lot of thrust, so the vectoring they do. Oh! What the hell? Wow. That was quite something. I'm afraid Kelson and Jack, they're screwed. They're going to die. And Milemon, the pilot, is probably going to be alright. So, we made it up to 3,000 I was going to say kilometers per second. That would be about 1% of c, but no, 3,000 meters per second. And then something horrible happened. Let's say a turbo pump exploded and the whole rocket came apart. Now this looked as though it was a glitch stemming from the VAB, where some of the parts were not quite attached correctly. So I'm going to have a look and see if I can't fix that. But for now, let's see if we can save Milemoan Kerman. And one of my new viewers commented on the video, it's so far just been a whole comedy of failure. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Unfortunately so. Let's just trigger all the decouplers. Everything is triggered. Milemoan should now be in a, well, in a free-flying capsule somewhere inside this fairing base. Oh no, this came apart, so the fairings won't separate. I'm going to time warp forwards a little bit. Oh, there they separated. Just the speed is very, very low. Look, everything is separating apart. And here we are in this capsule. Oh, hey, that's interesting. If I hit time warp, then they come apart, and then if it unwarps, they clip back together. No, let's not dwell on that. And see if Milemoan can survive this. We're coming down at only 3 kilometers per second, but we'll be coming down very, very steeply. So yeah, that's not assured. And the parachutes are already deployed, so we will encounter some G-force loading. I'm punching up the time warp because, well, it might take a while otherwise, and I have a launch to complete again. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you the whole new launch. If things do work out, I will cut back to you. Oh dear. If things do work out, I will cut back to the point where they went horribly wrong now. Unfortunately, that's our two scientists. They are done for. Ooh, with the parachutes, the G spiked above. Let's see what did they spike at? Only 5? I saw them here in the red, so that reading is not correct. Anyway, it seems as though Milemoan will be surviving, so that is good. I will see you when things go better, or when they go horribly wrong again. So there we are, almost at separation again, well, completely, and fingers crossed. There we go. I added some struts, and that's basically all I did. So now it's not shaking itself apart so much. What that has done is cut my frame rate in half throughout the whole launch. So either these struts are something magical, or they're actively fighting a kraken of some kind, or it's just something else that's going on. My computer has decided to run updates in the background or what have you. But well, something odd could still be going on. But here we are. We're now at, well, switch to orbital speed at 2.5 kilometers per second and into this asparagus staged upper stage booster. The vessel as a whole has 13 kilometers per second of delta V left. We'll be spending about 4 of that getting to orbit, and then we have 9 more for a lunar return. That is quite a low amount for a lunar return, but remember that half of our payload, the laboratory, that is of course not going down to the lunar surface and also not returning to Earth. So for that leg of the trip, our vessel is lighter, and the delta V calculations do not take that into account. So we have a bit more than that is strictly said in the engineer readout. Well, this is how this stage goes down. Basically, these tanks are asparagus staged, and they drop off 2 by 2. In much the same way as the Falcon Heavy is proposed to do it. Of course, the Falcon Heavy from SpaceX is a triple stack booster, not a hexagonal like this one, but it is going to use, as one of the first in the world, well, not one of the first, just the first in the world, to do in-flight propellant transfer between stages, which is really impressive. So it's slated to fly somewhere this year in 2014, and I hope they make it, and I hope they revolutionize spacecraft design and, well, all that good stuff. They're an amazing company doing good stuff. So that's it for the fan talk. I will cut forward to the next separation, and you can see the progression of the launch then. One more thing, I did recruit 2 new Kerbals from the astronaut building, and these are actually not stupid. Look, they're looking coherent, and Milemoan, our experienced pilot, has survived the crash, and she is now piloting this module. So, small jump cut this time, we're back already and things look much the same. And there we are ditching the rest of the tanks and of course the fairings. They could have been ditched a little bit earlier because we're well into the vacuum of space already, but this way we are safe rather than possibly sorry. So we can have a look at the payload. I showed it to you in the VAB as well, but here we are, have it in flight. The nuclear reactor here, the electric generator and the radiators, and of course the lab with the experiments that will go into lunar orbit. This is the transfer vehicle slash lander slash return capsule for Milmone. Bilstead and Herdred Kerman, they will remain our lunar orbital scientists. So what they did last minute is slap 2 docking ports here on this station. I currently have no plans of expanding it in lunar orbit, but with these docking ports at least we will have the option, or perhaps if there is a stricken lander it can rendezvous with the station and, I don't know, get some words of praise there. So now it does look like the Falcon Heavy a bit, just because it has three cores, 3 stacks. The Falcon Heavy, of course, will have 3 times 9 Merlin 1D engines, so that's different from these skippers. Well, same drill again. I'm going to burn these engines out, and then I will show you the rest of the procedure. Almost through those outer tanks now. There they go, separating them. Whew. They came very close to, well, knocking off that skipper, because this now does not have a good thrust-to-weight ratio. It's 0.7, and, well, fortunately we are in space, we're completely horizontal, so we don't have to fight gravity, and we're just at our apoapsis, just starting to drop down again. We shall see whether we can tack on 2 kilometers per second in this way. Let's see, do a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation. It will take a lot of seconds. We might not make it. This might have been a bad decision. If it turns out to have been a bad decision, I'm going to swap out this with a mainsail, and then we should be fine. Yeah, horizontal speed, no, vertical speed is now already 140 meters per second. We have 150 kilometers to fall. Yeah, I'm going to angle the rocket up a little bit, and I will be back with you when either we make orbit or we come crashing back into the atmosphere. I hope that doesn't happen, because so far this launch vehicle has performed admirably and is about to put a very heavy payload in orbit, which of course would be nice. So, see you in a bit, and I will tell you what has happened, or what is happening. And there we are, coming up on stage burnout, and also on the cusp of achieving orbital velocity. One possible issue that we might run into now is that we still didn't quite make orbital velocity, and now we won't have the thrust-to-weight ratio to do so, because our thrust-to-weight ratio now is positively minuscule. See, the engineer doesn't even display it. Do we have an orbit as of yet? We do not. So I'm going to have to point this almost straight up in order to, but this is inefficient. I might have to swap out the center skipper with a mainsail anyway, or well, or slightly reduce the payload somewhere. This is a pity, because the whole launch vehicle has been performing wonderfully, apart from now where we are standing on our rocket plume, or will in fact re-enter again and cry and cry and cry. So that's not great. This is not a great ending to what's otherwise a fairly decent launch. So I can choose either make the payloads a little bit lighter, or increase the engine power a bit. Swap out 1 or 2 skippers for mainsail, but then again that will reduce the delta V, so we're not going to make orbital velocity, but we might, because it goes faster. I'll have to do some more experimenting. Or, no, what I'm going to do instead is just change the launch profile, launch a little bit higher, so that we have all the time in the world to reach orbit, even though the thrust-to-weight ratio is not there. That's a better idea. I think we're going to make it today anyway, because we're almost there. So all my moaning and whining, it's a little bit inefficient, but it's not the end of the world. I'm burning at 45 degrees now, and I can see in the engineer window here that the periapsis height is, well, it's rising. It's still underground, so it's still not good, but it is rising, and we're still at 193 kilometers, so I'm confident that we will in fact make that orbital before we're going to hit the atmosphere. So that is good. That is good. This fuel is slowly draining, and we have a combined delta V of 7 kilometers per second. So that will take about 3 to get to the moon. Then we have 4.7, and then we will decouple this, which will give us extra delta V, of course, because then it doesn't need to be pushed along. So let's see at our periapsis. Well, here we are. It's now at 50 kilometers, and we are at, I don't want to push out my apoapsis too high because I want to do a moon transfer. So I'm going to angle up higher still, and I'm going to stop that as soon as this periapsis reaches, well, anything that can be considered space, so about 110 kilometers. Then, because this episode has been going on for a while already with all this showing of launches and whatnot, I will set up a transfer to the moon, do that transfer with the slow nuclear engine, and I will be back with you when this laboratory is safely tucked in orbit. And let me in fact just deploy the radiators. When this laboratory is in, well, when the whole combination is in lunar orbit, and we will proceed the mission from there. So that's going to be quite a big cut, but I will see you there, and everything in between you have seen many a times again. And we have a new launch vehicle, so celebrate that. I'll see you in exactly 1.5 seconds. And we're back here after the promised 1.5 seconds, getting into a stable orbit around the moon at approximately 1,000 kilometers of altitude. 65 meters per second of delta V on this burn remaining, and then we will have 3,000 more. That is of course plenty to get our pilot back, but it won't be enough to do the landing. That's not taken into account though that we're going to get extra delta V as soon as we decouple the lab. So we'll have to depend the future of that mission on how that goes. So let's stop the burn. And there's something else. I'll tell you that right after doing some science measurements. I think the magnetometer has been done already, but well, hey, no, never hurts to check. Here the gravity scan over the moon's highlands. What I did not do this time around is put a command probe on the lab. So that has to be doing everything it will be doing, because it won't be able to take new commands. That is a problem. So just to make sure the main point of this laboratory is being done, I'm going to make it begin research now. So that's doing research at a rate of 0.334 per day. Now it does more research the closer we get it to the surface, but I think this is a good altitude mostly because, well, we don't have too much delta V to play around with. Let's see, this gravity scanner, that won't be able to be triggered either as soon as the pod has detached, but I think I put one on this vessel as well. At least I hope so, because then I can just go ahead and detach now. Otherwise I want to make a few circles. I'm not quite sure. It's hard to see from here where it's in the shade and everything. You know what? I will send... No, I'm not going to send her out because there are struts in the way and she'll never get back in. Would I have put a gravity meter on there? Anyway, I'm going to fast forward over the poles, because this is of course a polar orbit, or sort of. And the goal is also to land at one of the poles, so that we may perform science there. We have landed only one Kerbal before, but he tragically failed to get any of the science back home. Thermometer, that's not going to be able to do anything, I'm afraid. No, highlands. Go on, I want some science from the poles. I hope this counts as over a pole. Otherwise, well, otherwise we're just gonna have to go there, aren't we? No, this counts as midlands. Oh, the orbit is not as polar as I would have expected it to be. Too bad at all. Well, this is sort of a polar crater. Maybe that counts. Mixed blessing, that was definitely at one of the poles. Yes, the moon's polar crater? What? That's a separate one as well? Great, I'm going to land in that. The polar crater, wonderful. So I'm going to tweak my orbit to land in that. And now it becomes time with that to separate. Well, after we transmit the data, of course. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and separate the pod here. And now here we are with just Milemone. And we have suddenly 5.8 kilometers per second of delta V, which should be enough for a landing. Yes, I'm deeming that enough for a landing and a return, so let's do that. It's going to have to be a somewhat of an efficient landing though, but I don't think that's a problem. Is that station spinning up by itself? I sure hope it's not. Anyway, they don't have any control authority. They do have a SES system, but apparently they have no way to control it. They have power, they have nuclear generation, and they have science and food on board for many, many years and months. So we'll check back with them occasionally for some science points. That's the point of this mission anyway. Bye, wave bye-bye to the Kerbals. Right, I'm going to set up a landing trajectory smack in the middle of this polar crater, and when that is happening I will check back with you. And here we are, transmitting science home and boosting for a landing. Now, I ran out of electricity. I forgot I didn't have a nuclear reactor anymore. Fortunately, this nuclear reactor, the thermal nuclear reactor for the engine, does produce electricity. So these transmissions are getting home. Look, I did bring a gravity scanner, but it's recessed in between the fuel tanks, so I can't really use Milemone to grab the data and store it in the capsule, so I've been transmitting it instead. Burning here now for a landing inside the moon's polar crater, and I also discovered another biome, the Moon North Basin. This looks like a good and wide area for a base maybe, or one of the craters. One of the equatorial craters could be nice for a base as well, but just because it's a nice easy target for landing. I think my next launch will be a 2.5 meter rocket with a 3-man capsule, a science lab, and possibly a refinery, all intended for landing at one of these craters, and of course to stay there. So that should be a nice challenging mission to undertake. For now though, the task of course is to land Milemone here in the crater and get her back home safely. Then she and Richesby can crew the next moon mission, and we'll have 2 veterans to do that. Of course, it matters not a single iota which Kerbal you have in the seat, but, well, you know, it's nice. This burn will take a while still, and I will join you on the surface or in a crashing hilarity moment. In a crashing hilarity moment, yes. Uh-oh, we're heading to the surface at 50 meters per second, and we are only 90 meters up. So I'm boosting straight up, hoping to not crash. And still have about 100 meters per second, yeah. Got worried for nothing again. It just is really scary to plummet towards the ground when you're not quite sure of the thrust to weight ratio, the acceleration capacity of your rocket to slow you down. We are now frighteningly low. Fortunately we are in a crater, so there's no sudden mountains, at least I'm not expecting any. Or is that, are we actually in the crater, or are we next to the crater? Are we on the rim of the crater? Let's ask the gravity scanner. Of course it is a gravity scanner, but it's also a very handy biome detector, because it will tell you which biome you're in and you don't have to pop the Kerbal outside to know, so that is good. Well, all the panic was for nothing and has been since resolved. We are now slowly heading towards the surface. Our delta V reserves are doing fine. In fact, probably better than any landing before this one. So Milemone, if she can stick the landing, has a decent to good shot of getting home. One wildcard is the side-mounted parachutes. They have once or twice burned off the capsule. I put them high up though, so that probably won't happen, but you know, possibilities for doom are never completely excluded in this space program. We give our astronauts a fighting chance, that's what we do. That's what we do. So, I think right now our horizontal speed is just 5 millimeters per second, or 5,000 meters per second. That would be... No, that would be 5 meters per second. Then they would just write that. Right, increasing the thrust. I want to touch down slowly, slowly. Let's... Right. Oh, there we are. Landed, safe and sound. Wonderful. Time to do science. Observe mystery goo. And I was thinking I could leave Milmone here and make a rendezvous on the surface with that other base that's going to be landing next episode, but then I would forgo all this science, so I'm not going to do that. Yeah, this gravity scan can be kept. That's 80 points. That's very nice. Keep that, and I'm not going to use the gravity scanner again because it's quite tedious to do so. Record seismic data. Well, the ground will be monitored for impact events. That doesn't work here on the moon, or at least it has never worked yet. And now, of course, it is time for Milmone to do the EVA reports, the surface samples, and all that good stuff. And please don't crash into the rocket while doing that. And of course, the flag planting, or did I say that already? That's the most important bit, so she's going to do that first. This is the polar crater. There we go. My very own polar crater. And time for an EVA report. Keep that as well. And of course, the surface sample for 120 science points. Again, a mission with a lot of science potential, and even in space we transmitted a lot of the gravity data, so that should all be... Hey, so here we are again. I had a crash. KSP crashed because I have Windows 8.1 now. Not directly because of that, but because of the setting for sticky keys. I think every gamer's most hated setting had, well, reverted itself. So I pressed shift a bunch of times to make Milmone jet up, and now she's getting squished between the rocket to make her go up, and well, that triggered the sticky keys and caused all sorts of horrible things to happen. I don't know what happened now. She just fell. She can't help it. She's a good pilot, but this EVA suit has eluded her for a while. Anyway, all the science has been scienced. We're time to bring it aboard and return home, so we can marvel at our R&D building once again. And in case you were wondering, of course, I did not yet delete the sticky keys from my install now. So if something like this happens again, then well, it shall happen again. Right, so we have 3.5 kilometers per second of delta V, and we need to aim. Hey, we get an aim assist from the universe. Somewhat. Can we set the sun as a target? No. What I like to do here is just gaze along this line and set something in the distance as a target, so I can just point towards it, but we don't really have that. Oh yeah, we can point towards the northwest crater of a bit. That works. I think that's a good direction to take off and set as a target. And we will boost up a little bit and then point towards the northwest crater. Right, so here we go, lifting off, and we even have to take our landing legs with us for a bit because they're not out of fuel yet. That's a good sign. That means we'll probably make it. Then again, this vessel is just different than the other ones because, well, this center fuel tank is smaller, but well, everything is looking good. Oh, shouldn't aim to it that literally. I'm just boosting back towards the ground, wasting delta V, but well, we have some of it, so that is going to be fine. I still have one of the goo canisters. Let's do that here. Well, we can recover that for 1.6 science, sure. Let's do it. I want to angle a little bit higher. Look. Here we go. This is actually on top of the moon. Northwest crater, we're heading that way. And that is sort of retrograde to Earth. I'm going to point up straight for a bit, get an apoapsis going, and then fiddle with the maneuver node to, well, get us home. Let's see, how long do we have for the apoapsis? We have a minute. That's not quite a lot. So I want to do a little bit more boosting. I'm just going to boost until this stage runs out, separate that, and then fiddle the apoapsis node, well, the apoapsis node, Jesus, the maneuver node, so that we get home in one piece. There we go. Those can crash back to the surface. Yeah, and we did land on the rim of some crater, so that's funny. Well, maybe this is another biome again. Let's have a quick look at the EVA. No, this is still the polar crater. Anyway, time maneuver node time. I have a feeling this is not going to be the most efficient way. No, this will just rocket us out of the solar system, and we have already put 9 kilometers per second into this maneuver node. No, no, not the most efficient way. Perhaps we should thrust in this direction instead. Let's have a look, because we are coming from the poles. Or is this somehow... This is pointed pretty much retrograde. No, not really. I could modify it like this a bit. And... yes, this is looking a lot better. If I can now aim that so that it is more retrograde. Here we have something going with a lowish periapsis. We need to go a bit slower. Yeah. There we have something that is just about encountering the planet. Yeah, that's a collision course. That's good to aim for. And then you can modify it. This takes 2 kilometers per second. We have 2.8, so that should be more than fine. I'm going to do the burn, and I will see you on Earth, or in the fiery hells of re-entry. Once again, as promised, here we are careening towards the Earth. For the first time ever, I've just trusted aerodynamic forces and the pod's designer to keep it stable. There is no SAS active, and it's completely stable through the atmosphere. With the one exception that it is spinning, but... well, that should be fine. I put the periapsis at 70 kilometers originally. Wow, that's the camera going nuts. And that seems to be a very good spot for a 10.5 kilometer per second re-entry. It's ever so slightly dropping now. The G's have stayed under 5, I think. Let's have a look. Can we see that here? No, under 3.6 even. That's very, very gentle. So, a 70 kilometer periapsis for the Mark 1 capsule is definitely a sweet spot so far. If we look at the shielding, even that is holding up completely fine. Of course, we're not quite out of the woods yet. There is a fair amount of speed yet to be scrubbed off, but so far it seems to be going completely well. Just wanted to share that with you, and I will join you when Malmoni is on the surface or dead. And splashed down. Let's recover that vessel and see what we can do in the science department. I think I made a whole speech about what nodes I want to get, but I've completely forgotten. So it's time to go to the R&D building again. We earned 333.6 sciences, and that's just what we brought back on the capsule. There was also a lot of gravity scans transmitted. If we do go to the moon again, and let's face it, we will, we're going to the northwest basin for a lander and bringing a lot of gravity scanners to bring that data back, because there's about 10, 15 or even more biomes that can be gravity scanned for a 40-point value return, and that's amazing. Of course, that moon base that will be landing there, that's not going to give us an immediate science return, but that will be generating science as well, just as the one that in orbit now. Hey, speaking of that, before going to the R&D building, let's check out our tech labs in orbit of Kerbin, Earth, and in orbit of the moon. So, Tag Lab 2 here. You do have to visit them. They generate science, but you have to visit them to get it. So let's get it from this one, and the one around the moon, well, that's been generating now for half a day, so it would have like 0.16 science points. That's not really worth anything. But here we get 44 from this lab, and that is definitely nice. Can check up real quick on how the reactor is doing. Where is that reactor? Oh, it was plugged into the side here. That still has about, well, just over 3/4 of its uranium fuel, so that's still good to go. I think when that's done, I'm just going to chuck the reactor away and attach a new one instead of reprocessing the fuel, which is also possible, but that would take time in which there's no science being done, so that's not great. So we have 710 science points now, and with that, oh yeah, metamaterials, larger heat shields, or this one, advanced metalworks, also larger heat shield, just not as large. Fairing adapter, girders, small docking ports, radial attachment point, really nice that, and a quad coupler. Yes, we are going to, and stack separators. Well, we're basically in it for the heat shield. This one has a super heat shield, 0.2 mass, and this one has 4 mass. What? This is amazing. Still, I'm going to get this one first, just because that makes more sense in the progression, and maybe it'll unlock some interesting things here as well. No, hell no. I'm going to get this first. It has a solar sail. I have no idea which I'm going to get first. This one, let's do it. Click. Oh yes, and it did unlock a lot of extra things. So what we have to choose from now, and I really want this one as well, because it's going to lead to these awesome things. Larger rockets, bigger nuclear reactors, stuff that we need. And here in this new node, we are looking at some fairing shrouds, and I don't really understand what the point of them is. Anyway, this is me talking over the past me. It cut off right in the middle of a sentence, and I'm now basically gluing this bit of speech to that. I don't know how it happened. Fraps desynced this bit of audio video, which is strange because it records it at the same time, and that caused the beginning bit of the video to have no sound, which I've edited out, but then the ending of the video also had no sound, and that was in fact spoken by me. So no clue about that. I had no clue what I was going on about, but check back tomorrow where we get more science for more materials, solar sails, nuclear reactors, and bigger rockets. All the stuff a true spaceman wants. So this was Lorenzo. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.